Hello everyone, hope you're all well. Welcome to our next workshop, our wonderful Water World workshop, and today we are going to be doing a turtle. So I'm going to show you how to do lots of different shells, and I'm going to show you how you can draw up your turtle, also how you can change it to look a little bit cuter or a little bit older. With this workshop you have some PDFs, and it would be nice if you are able to print those off. They're going to come in black and also in pale ink. So the first one, this is it in the black ink, and it's got an outline of a turtle for you, so you can either use that to just draw around to practice your drawing, or you can colour it and shade it. It's up to you. And you've also got 4 shell shapes for you to practice doing different designs. You've also got another A4 PDF which is all just shells, so there's 2, 4, 6, 8, there's 10 shells on there for you to have a practice with. And I have been using the PDF and having a practice, and I have created different shells. I've cut them out, but here they are. Here they are, just on an A4 sheet of paper, and some of them are really nice, some of them aren't so nice. I also had a whole lot of different experimental ones. Some were really awful. Some were just helping me to see how I could get different shapes, and so it'd be nice if you can just use these PDFs just purely for experimentation and practice. Build up your confidence, and it's actually just a really nice exercise, just sitting colouring in the shells without doing your turtle. So we've got all of those. I'm going to show you how I've created each one of these to hopefully give you a little bit of inspiration, and I'm sure you'll have lots of lovely ideas all of your own, but I'll show you how I've done all of these just to get you started. And we'll also be looking at how you can change your turtle to look different ways, to make it look a little bit older or to look really cute and young. I've been doing these on A5 pieces of paper, but for this workshop I'm just going to draw them quite small. Purely because it takes ages to do all this colouring, and this one isn't even coloured half as well as it should be yet. It's just all been playing around. So we'll do them quite small, but then hopefully when you come to creating your own water world, you'll have an idea whether you want to do your turtle as a centerpiece and just have it as a large piece of artwork on its own, or if you want to create it as a little small turtle who's going to be added into your water world with your mermaid or with your seal. It's up to you. So I think we shall get started. Right, so to start off, I've used the PDFs and I've created all my little shells, and so I thought it might be a nice idea for you to start off by, once you've coloured them in, or even before you've coloured in, just cut out the shape of your shell, and then you can use that as your template, and you can practice placing these different shells on your turtle to see what it looks like in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm just using a normal HB pencil. I've got it's quite a thick lead, the one I'm using, because my other one needs some new lead in it, but it doesn't matter, just a HB pencil. And then if you want to just draw around that shell to start off with, this is one way of doing it. I'm going to show you different ways. So if we just draw around that shell, there we've got a shell shape. And I'm just going to move the camera down so you can see a little bit better. And then we can start to draw our little turtle. So this area here is where his neck is going to be. So I'm going to use that just to bring out a little curvy bit where his neck's going to be, and then just lift it up to create where his head's going to be. And you can really play around with these outlines. You can make his head really big, really small. When you're being whimsical, it doesn't really matter. So I'm now going to start coming down to where I think his nose is going to be. And in this area here is where I think I'm going to do his eye now. So I'm going to use the top of his head as a sort of mirror shape, just to start creating his eye. Now, as you know, I like to do my eyes really big, but you might find that you prefer doing smaller eyes, or more realistic turtle looking eyes if you want to find a turtle on in a book or on the internet and you want to use it as a reference. Then you can always do that, as long as you don't copy it completely. Then use them as a reference. And if you are just sitting in your room and you're not putting it out there, then you know you can use artists just to try and practice with, as long as you never try to claim that the artwork you create is yours if you have copied it from somewhere. But I'm sure you all know that. But there, then just creating a pupil for his eye. And now you can leave it at that. If you think you want his eye smaller, just rub it out and do it again. If you want to make him look quite cutesy, then it's quite nice if you give them quite a big eyelid. So just following those lines that you've done, just create a bit of an eyelid. And then if you think the eyelid is too close to the head, rub it out and then just draw another line. And you'll get to see how much you can change the character of your turtle just by little changes, just by giving him a bigger head or a smaller eye. So it's just quite nice to have a journal and just sit and doodle and just do lots of different drawing, and then reflect back on what you've done and see which works for you and see which doesn't work for you, because the things that don't work for you are still a positive outcome. You're learning of what you like, what you don't like. So just coming straight down and then coming round the corner, and that is his nose, but also his mouth. So just creating a line there for his mouth. Now again, you can rub that out, make his nose shorter, make it longer, and see what you prefer. Try to not get hooked up on the lines that you do being the finished line. I'm always rubbing out, always rubbing out. So there, we've now created his chin, and now we're going to create his flippers. So by using this area where we've decided where the bottom of his shell is, that is like an area to then start creating his I think they're called flippers, but I'm not really sure. But I'm going to call them his legs, just for simplicity. So I'm now going to use this area just to create. So it's just a case of coming around. And if you're not happy with that, then just rub it out. If you want it to be smaller, make it smaller. You want it to be bigger, make it bigger. Then we're going to have his other one coming out of here, so just under his chin. And it's going to be smaller because this one's at the front, and anything that's at the back needs to be smaller to help it make it look like it's at the back. And then I'm going to create the bottom of his shell. So from here, just bringing a line down, and this is going to be his tummy. So at the bottom of this shell here, just coming out, and then just trying to get that to meet where you've done it. And you can also do another little line in there if you want to create a little fancy pattern just underneath his shell before you start getting to his tummy. Then just put another little line in there, and then we just need his back feet, so they just come out at the back just kind of like so, just round and in. And then he just needs one at the back to look like he's got another one, and then it just goes maybe that way. So that's roughly the outline. You can play around with that and then go back in and then make his shell even bigger, or you can go back in and rub him out and make his head smaller. It's up to you. You can play around with his eyes and change his look just by giving him a thinner eyelid, a smaller eye, a bigger pupil, just going in and just changing the lines that you've already done. You might want to make his eyelid come more through his eye, like so maybe, and then you're just getting a small pupil. It's up to you. I'm going to rub that one away. But it's quite nice just to sit and draw lots and lots of different turtles, different sizes, have them really big, have them really small. And then once you've coloured all of your shells, which is something I'm going to show you in a minute, I'm going to give you lots of different ideas, you can then place them on his back and see which one you prefer before you start colouring him in properly. So that's just one way of doing it. I'm going to now show you how to create some of these shells, and then we'll probably go around the outline if you prefer, or perhaps you don't need me to do that actually. Just the PDF is there as an outline. There's one in pale pink as well, so if you just with your pencil just follow it around to build up your confidence. But what you can also do is go outside the lines. So for instance, this is what shape we've got just now, but if you want to then, and with the paler ink you'll find it easier, this is just the black ink so that you can see it, you can perhaps think I'm going to have his head a little bit thinner and do it that way and just build up your confidence. Or you can practice giving him a really big eyelid instead of a small one and just see how the expression changes, or give him an eye that's more reptilian, so it's not like a proper pupil, it's more like a diamond in there. And see how you change his personality just by changing the elements within his eyes, or giving him eyelashes or not giving him eyelashes, and then also giving him his pupil as well. And so with the pale pink one, you wouldn't see that outside line really, and you'd be able to see how you're changing him. You could do the same with making him his face smaller, making his legs and things smaller, and practicing doing different shapes and things inside his shell. Right, so I'm going to show you now how I have done some of these shells. So a really good thing to have to start off with is a white pencil, and to have it quite sharp. And I'm going to show you how we can. I just need to find my PDF. Here it is. Right, so for this one here I've used a gold gel pen. glitter gel pen. But we started off with a white pencil. The other thing that is good to have is an embossing tool. So this will give you a different effect. So I've just got a fine nibbed one and the white pencil. And so let me get the camera down a little bit and just move this so that we can see this one. So this, if you have your white pencil and you start to, you won't see much here because it's white on white, but if you can start to create the patterns and the shapes that you want in your shell with the white pencil, and you press down really hard to burnish it, then whatever pencils you put in on top of that won't sit on top of it. So you get a really nice, you get to see the pattern underneath the pencil. So if I just quickly do a couple of, we'll call them tile effects, because it looks a bit like a tile on a roof. And then just press. Now the key thing to do is to press hard and burnish it so that nothing else can sit on top of it. And then if you go in on top of that with, say, like a pink, I'm just going to now go over the top of that, you will hopefully start to see that pattern come through. And so it's a case of just going around and just adding lots of layers of colour over the top, and then you've got that underneath. And then you can either leave it like that, or in this case with this one, once I had coloured it all in, I went in with my gold gel pen and just on top of that white just laid down the gold, and then it gave a sparkly sort of look. So can you see the shine? Yeah, so that's literally that, just adding on layers, and that needs more layers as well, but it's just, that just shows you one way of doing it. Now you can do the same, exactly the same thing with your embossing tool. Instead of the white pencil, you can go in with it, and then you're creating like an indent into the paper. And so I'm just going to show you by doing it this way how it looks as well. So again, the key is to press hard and really get that indent to sit in the paper. And again, once you come down, go over it with your pencil, you can see, hopefully you can see that. Yeah. So that's one way, and you can do that with all of these different designs. This one's, they are pale because they needed a lot more layers, but it actually took me 10 hours in total to sit and just colour these ones. And so this one was using my white pencil to do swirls, so just going in and pressing down hard with the white pencil, but this time instead of creating the tile effect, I was creating swirls. So you could do it with hearts, flowers, zigzags, whatever sort of shape you want to do. I'm just going to do that. And again, I'm beginning with the blue this time. And once you start to colour it, then those shapes and colours are in there, which is really nice. So, and obviously you want to do your light circular motions and build it up with different colours and have those start to come through. Can you see that? Hoping you can see that. Another one is this one here, which is like a shell, just a normal seashell, and this has been done in the same way with the white pencil, only starting at the very end of the shell right here and pressing down hard to create a little swirl at the very end, and then having that swirl come up and over. So I might just go over it again just to really press down, and then having that swirl come up and over all the way to the end, and then doing like a gradual like colour change. So you could start off with it being really light, so say having an orange. Again, I'm not colouring it the way that we should because it just takes so long, but if I can just roughly sort of show you. So there you start off orange, and then you move into maybe a pink, so you know this needs a lot of layers, but this just hopefully that's letting you see the white come through, and then you go from a pink maybe into a darker orange or a darker pink, or into a yellow maybe. So if we come back into a yellow, and obviously these need lots more layers, and to do it with your circular motions to keep it nice and tidy, but it hopefully lets you see how that white is underneath there, and that's how you would get this sort of effect. And this one was blue, so just a swirl, then blue, left it lighter in the centre, and then had it green at the other side. With this one, this was a case with the white pencil again, just drawing some different designs on there. So you don't always have to do it with the white. You could do it with a different colour. You could have it with a black. The idea is just whatever it is that you use, make sure you burnish it, and then nothing else can sit on top of it. But I think it just looks really nice when it's white because it just shows up. So if you were to say draw like a circle here and here and then here, and then draw more of a circle. That's actually an oblong, it's not a circle. And then draw another one here with little lines in it like this, and then this one here that you've drawn is an oblong, just give it some little swirls on top of it, and then maybe a big swirl in the middle. Play around with different patterns, but it's just about pressing down really hard and then doing your ombre sort of effect from orange up into yellow. And this one, this just shows you how it can look flatter. So these all these other ones, these ones make the shell look really round because you've done circular sort of motions, but in this one here it was flat, just using a ruler and just a normal pencil with a ruler, and then creating flat lines and then going in the opposite direction and then just colouring them, and this just made the shell look flat instead of round. So then if you just go in that direction now and create like diamonds, it starts to look a bit more like a toilet seat. But it just lets you see how you can get different sort of like effects, because maybe you want it to have a flatter back rather than a round one. And then this one looked a bit more like a brain. So this is one of the ones that I weren't really bothered about these two that I did. but it was all about the process of having a play and seeing what you liked. With this one again, I used the pink as the burnishing pencil, pressed down really hard, and then inside, once I'd created that, then just went in with a pink pencil and mirrored that shape by creating another one in each one of them. But yeah, it's like a brain, isn't it? And so this one's with stamps, so let me move some of these over. So if you have some stamps, I used my rose from Joy, from my old stamps collection, and some Spun Sugar Distress ink, and then just inking up the rose, and then in the center just putting that rose in there, and then using a smaller stamp which is a bit like a snowflake flower. Again, it's in one of my old stamp sets and I just can't quite remember which one it was, because what I do is I put all my stamps together on a sheet of glass so that I've got things to choose quite quickly, and I take them all out of the packaging and then I just can't remember where they were from. And so if you want to just get a piece of paper to make sure you've still got some flowers that are coming off the edge, if you use a piece of paper right on the edge and then still stamp down, then you get your little image looking like it's not gone off the page. So maybe do another one down the bottom, maybe around about there. And so it's just a case of doing lots of little stamps and then colouring it. So again, lots of layers, but I used a blue, the turquoise, light cobalt turquoise, and then just started to colour all the way around the images, and then just built that up from a lighter blue up into darker blues. And again, this needs more layers still, but if you wanted to go down the stamping sort of way, then that's what I would do, just stamp them all down and then start to colour around them. And then once, if you find that you're starting to lose the ink a little bit, once your pencils are starting to become more colourful and vibrant, then what I usually do is I go in over the stamp with a pencil and have a sharp edge. That one's not quite sharp enough, but just emphasising, just drawing over the top of it. And then the same with the rose. And you could either just leave the rose as it is, just with outlines, or you can start to colour it as well. And so I would work up different shades of blue and then go into darker blues and just keep building it up. And so I quite liked my turtle with that shell. Where is he? Well, I quite like that one. But when you've got lots and lots to choose from, it's quite nice. This one was the same again, with a white pencil, creating these shapes here. And then colouring them in different colours in each one, but I had little bits of green and pink in there and blue and pink, so just mixing it up. Again, this needs more layers, but this is the same one as this one, so you can see the difference in in how many layers have been on there. There's a lot more on this one to that one, but it's the same idea. And then I used a stamp again, a little swirly one on top, and a black pen just to do some little dots. So that one was quite a nice one as well. Have I covered them all? Oh, this one. This one was my favourite. So this one was just a case of, I used a red pencil this time as the predominant one to press down and burnish, and just created little circles that kind of folding over into each other, and then just different colours and building it up. So, but what we'll do now is we will colour this little turtle. I'll show you how I did all of it, and we'll choose an actual shell to do properly. So I'm not sure I think I'll do this one. Yeah, we'll do this shell properly, or yeah, that's what we'll do, and we'll get him all coloured up and show you how you can do his face and the markings on his legs and things. Right, let's start colouring. So I'm going to give him this this style of shell. In fact, it's going to look more like that. It's got the same sort of lines in it, only I'm doing it more as a graduation rather than excuse me, colouring all the different colours. But you do what you feel you want to do. So we'll start with his shell, and if you have a nice sharp white pencil, which mine isn't very sharp, or even an ivory. I'm going to use my ivory because it's a bit sharper, just to let you see. Let me just move that. Okay, right, so I'm going to start creating quite long ovals. So I'm just going over it again and again and just pressing quite hard just to get that burnished sort of look. And then from there I'm going to start bringing it down his back. Just keep going over it. And then the same again, only this time it's folding into this one. And then the same again, a bit of folding in there. And then perhaps have one here that folds along all of it. You don't have to do it like this, just make whatever patterns you like. I'm just going to do one there. Right, so that gets that started, and I'm going to have it graduating pink, orange, yellow. So I'm going to start off with what my palest sort of pink is, and that is the salmon, and I'm using my Faber Castel Polychromos, and then just starting at the very end in light circular motions, starting to create some colour, and I'm going over the top of that burnished sort of area, and it's not showing up as much actually in ivory as what it would have done in the white, but you can still see it, you can still see that little pattern. So I'm doing mine quite quickly because it takes hours, so if you want to try and just take a bit more time and do your nice little circular motions, you'll get a much nicer finish. So I'm doing it pink to about there, And then I'm going to bring in my orange tone, and I'm using a pale orange to start with, a dark chrome yellow it's called, in this central sort of point, and having some of that orange going into the pink as well, and then that makes it flow a bit more and it looks like it's a gradual sort of change rather than a drastic line. And then I'll use the yellow at the top. So I'm using cadmium yellow. And then I'm going to have it graduate back into a pink. So I'm going to have it a little bit darker here, and I'm starting to work into that yellow. I've gone back to my salmon pink, and now it's just a case of building up those colours by getting darker shades of those colours in there and just going over it again and again with nice slight circular motions until you get that nice build up. And then the more layers you do and the more colours that you add on top of each other, the more vibrant his shell will become. So I'm then going to go and use a darker pink, which on this one is the Pink Madder Lake, and just do the same again. I'm being aware of just trying to keep it darker down at the bottom of his shell. And just having it graduate up his back a little bit into the orange. And then I'll use a darker orange. If I can find it, here it is. The dark cadmium orange, and then start bringing that in on the middle part of his back, and have that orange going down into the pink as well. Now hopefully you'll start to see those, whatever pattern and whatever design you've put in underneath there in your white or your ivory, you'll be starting to see that come through. Hoping it's coming up on the camera, but if you are colouring alongside me, you'll hopefully be seeing it for yourself just as you're doing it. And then just continuing to do that, just lots and lots of layers. I'm going to get my darker pink for up here at the top. Because this is going to have a shadow in here, in this little bit where his neck is. So I'm just going to have it that it's darker in here and going up his back a little bit. And then I'm going to create a little bit for underneath. So I'm going to use like a red or a reddy orange. I just need to sharpen it. Where did I put my sharpener? Right, and I'm going to make his shell look quite round. If you do little hooks that kind of come round and just underneath that a little bit, then that starts to give the illusion of it being a round sort of shell. going underneath, if that makes sense. And then having it sort of start to change over here, maybe a bit straight there. Put one in here as well. And in between those bits, if you use a fine liner, you'll get a more distinct dot. I'm just doing dots, but of course you can do dashes or kisses or hearts, whatever you want to do. And you can, again, if you don't have a fine liner, just use your black pencil, or you can get sparkly and start using your glittery gel pens, things. And then underneath his tummy, I want to keep it quite yellow. So I'm going to use the chrome dark yellow and just start to colour under there, but just leaving a little area that's going to have a little bit of shine in the centre. And then this area here underneath this line is going to be where your shadow is, to make it look like his tummy's underneath his shell. So I'm going to use a brown or a grey or just something dark. So I've got a dark sepia. And if you just emphasise that line first off, and then just gradually drag a little bit of that dark. Now you can use your black and just do it really lightly, or you could use a purple or an indigo blue, just depending on what colour you want to use. But by doing that, that now starts to create that illusion of his shell being underneath. So I just want it to be darker. And at the corners as well, as there's a little shadow coming from his legs. And then I'm going to use this same to create a shadow in here underneath his shell, and just gradually drag a little bit of this out. And just up his neck a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same in here, because he's going to have a shadow where his face is coming over his leg a little bit. So just having it gradually come down there. And then I'm also going to do it in underneath his shell where his back legs are. So I'm using most of this back leg is going to be shadowed over. So I'm going to shade most of it out. And then if I just emphasise this bottom line, just sharpen that up a little bit, then I can see where I just want a little bit of a shadow coming out here on this back leg as well. And to help get your shadow look more like a shadow, you can use your black pencil on top of that, just to sharpen up that underneath area. And then it looks more like a shadow. Same here. So just a fine line of black. And the same here. and in there. You just find an area that's going to be really black, and then that does that. Right, and so it's just a case now of just going over that back bit. If I bring this one in and just, you can see this one as well needs lots more layers, but just keep building up with darker colours over the top. And then if you want to go over the top of those lines that you've done, you can do that with like a gel pen, or you can keep it as it is. I've got a gold glitter gel pen. I'm not sure who it's by. I can't really read that. Oh, it's a Mitsubishi pencil, it says. But then if you just want to go in over the top of those lines with your glitter, your gel pen, and you get a nice sparkly turtle. And then if you wanted to put in some little stamps on top of that, you could also do that as well. You could go in with your inks now and do that in the way that I showed you how to do the one with the rose. That one, if we put that over the top. You could do the same colouring that we've just done and the same effects underneath, but then stamp on top as well. Right, let's get his eye. So I'm giving him blues, and like we usually do, starting with the lightest, so I'm using a light cobalt turquoise, to get that bottom first layer in, and then building up and darken up. And I'm going to put this into his pupil as well. I'm also going to put it on his lid, so starting right in at the corner, and then finding an area where you want it to have a little shine at the top. And then I'm going to use a cobalt green, and I'm going to emphasise the outside line, and then start to drag a little bit of the colour up, and then creating a shadow going along underneath his eyelid, all the way over and into the white, a little bit into the pupil, and then just adding little bits of colour into his iris, taking all the way along so you can see that that's the bottom of his eye. So just little swirls, and then using a darker blue, I'm using cobalt blue greenish, and again doing that outside bit and coming along the bottom, creating that shadow, colouring a bit more of the pupil with it, and start to create an area that's going to have white for his sparkle. A little bit down into the centre, just under where his pupil, just down there at the centre point. And then also doing the same with the dark blue on his eyelid. Just little swoops help to make it look round if you just do it in the direction of the shape of his eyelid, starting at the corner and then just swooping over. And then if you bring in your black and then start to find that line where the bottom of his eyelid is, then that's when his eye will start to pop. And then just try and darken it up just by burnishing it and pressing down on it once you're happy with that line, and then emphasising the pupil as well, just bringing in black again, going over onto that shadow on the top of his iris, and trying to not have any white between that line and the inside of his pupil. Have all of that really dark, and then creating that shadow coming over. And it's just a case of every chance you get going back in there and darkening that up and burnishing to make it really, really dark. And then if you want to get your normal pencil again, we can start to create some little, my one looks quite sad actually, and that's because I've given him a really droopy eyelid that's coming over his pupil, so he looks quite sad and a bit tired actually, a bit like me, a bit tired. But start creating little shapes on his face, so just a bit like that, and then just creating them all the way around his face. Now you can make them as big or as small as you like, so like here's some examples where I've done it really, really big there, and then they're a bit smaller. They go right down his back. What did I do? This one here, did this bit even bigger. So that's a really large area of black, whereas in comparison to little ones there. So just whatever you feel, you will change his little personality, each little one you put in as well. So use just your normal pencil, and then if you want to rub them out, you can. Then you're not confined. And then I like to put one just over the top of his head a little bit, so that it looks like it's going around the corner as well. And if you want to, you can put a few just down under his chin as well. You don't have to, but I did a few there. And then if you have like a burnt sienna, to go around the bottom of his eye. So if we just highlight this bottom sort of line, then that emphasizes this eye a little bit more. And if you wanted to like create a little squiggle, even just going along there, just to give him a bit of character. And what I did as well was I did some little hooks that come out around his eye here, just to make him look a bit more reptilian. And then you can have those circles come around a little bit, or not. But if you have them darker at the top and round and then just fading out, so just by going over the top bits again, then that helps them fade out. And you could have them go really long round if you want, if you didn't want that circle there. You could have them really come round. And then I like to use the burnt sienna as well around his mouth, so just a little, finding his line, we'll go in with the black over that in a minute, and then just going around the corner and coming down this bit as well. Then that just kind of helps to highlight his mouth a little bit. And then if you go in over that with the black, then that brightens it up more. So because I've done my line a little bit more downward. He's even sadder looking because of his sad eye and his line going down. If that line was to start going up a little bit, you'd make him a bit happier. And if his eyelid was a little bit further up so that you got more of his pupil, opened his eye up wider, and gave him a smaller eyelid, then that would make him look a little bit more brighter and open-eyed. So he looks a bit miserable at the minute. I quite like it though, he's quite cute. Right, so for his face I use the same tones that we use in our girls' faces, so starting off with beige red and then building up to the coral, but I've also used a little bit of Prismacolor. I like these peachy tones and the beige tones, they're quite nice, just to add a little bit more depth to the face. But you can equally do that with your Faber Castels by maybe using a cinnamon or like an umber one. I haven't got one at hand. So like you could use like the brown ochres and things like that to add a little bit more colour. So just with the beige red, starting off, just going around most of his face, or most of this first layer, covering most of his face. Only like I like to find a little area that's going to have a little bit of white. As well, so maybe this area here I'll leave a little bit of white. And then if you go in through those little lines that you've made, but you leave a little bit of white underneath the next line, then that'll give that a bit more dimension. So if you just continue to go over there, just around there, and then keep that a little bit whiter, hopefully you'll start to see that. And then you can extend your lines as well with your paler pencil, extending that out. So I would just go all the way around all of these little shapes that you've made on his face, and all down his back with this beige red. Again, I'm rushing, you can take your time and do it nice. And then finding a little area that's a bit whiter. So once you've got that first layer in and you've got a little area that's a bit whiter, you can start building up your colours with your different, whether you're going to be using your Faber Castell or your Prismacolors. I'm going to use like a beige over the top of that and have it at its darkest right at the top of his head to make it look round. And then if you go in over the top of that area that you've made into shadow as well, that'll make it look more joined together. So just really darkening up around the outside, on that outside line, and then there's a little white area between here, there and his mouth. And then same around his eye, just to get that darker tone in on his eyelid, just right along that line. Now you can use your burnt sienna in there, or a brown as well, just to darken that up a bit. So if I get my burnt sienna and go in here now, then that darkens that up again. And then if you bring some of the burnt sienna into the corner, then that darkens up that little corner bit as well. gives it a bit of depth. And so then if you want to make his face a little bit more pinky, I use salmon, and then just find areas that you want to darken up. So along the top of his head and neck, again coming down to where this shadow is going to be. Darken up round his face again, right round that line. Just bringing in some pink around his eye. And just darken up in between all these little shapes on his face. Now these are all going to be black. Now if you want to make him look round, you can do these little, like what we've done here with these little gills, from that line and over. Just doing that sort of movement on his back into his shell. Then that'll start to make it look quite round as well. Just make it a little bit more pinky up here on his top of his head. And then on the top of his head, I'm just starting to burnish that little bit there just to make it look shiny. And then the same over here, just put a little bit of pink going around where the black's going to be as well. Right, so you can either use your fine liners to do all the black. You don't have to do these black either, you could do them purple or whatever colour, or like a dark indigo like this one. But I quite liked it with the black, and it's the same as when you do the eye. If you do a few layers and then just keep going back in and darken it up until you burnish it and make it nice and shiny. So however dark you do it, you'll find that you press a little bit harder, you'll get it darker and darker. And because we're not putting any more layers of other colours in there, you know, you can pretty much do that straight away, just get that. So when you thought you were hard, try and press harder. When you thought you had enough colour, just go back in and see if you can get it even blacker. And it'll look more polished and finished if you do that. So it's a case of doing that on all of the little black things that you've done, and again noticing that you need to get more black in on his eye. Once you see how black you've got that, you can see how much black you still need to get in there on his eye to make it pop. And again, remembering to always go back in and darken. Whatever work you do, just keep going back in and darkening up that eyelid line, because it'll keep fading into the colour. Same, just a little bit there in the corner. And of course he needs a lot more layers in there, so just keep going back in and building that up and darkening up his eye, creating little shapes and things if you want, just by doing little squiggles. And then for on his flippers, it's the same idea as what we did with his shell. So if I bring this one in and show you, what I've done is, where the white is, again, that is going down hard to burnish it with a white pencil, and then colouring in each shape that I've made. So if we get our white pencil, so I've sharpened up my white pencil, and if we just go around and create little shapes, so I'm going to do some little half sort of circles. and I'm going to try and make them different sort of shapes and sizes. So some are a bit bigger than others, some are a bit more like an L shape, an upward L, or some more that are more circular. But the harder you press down and the more you burnish that, the better the effect will be. And then in the inside, just creating little shapes within that area. So some little circles maybe, some ovals. Just do what your heart feels like doing. Some squiggly ones. And then I used like a pink. I used like a brighter pink than the salmon. I used the pink Madder Lake, but for in between those shapes. But then I went in with my lightest blue first. So whatever colour you want to do them. If you just go inside where you've created your little shapes to highlight them. And if you want to change the colour, so I did one side that was blues, and then the other side I did in greens. So I just leaf green I used for this. So this side was sort of the greeny area. And then I did a combination of blues and greens for the centre. So you could have one half of the shape in a green and the rest in a blue, maybe. And then again, like what we do, darkening up with a darker blue. Again, I'm rushing so that I can get as much into this video for you as I can. So you try and take your time, you get a nicer effect. And then in the centre, I went over it with the pink. And so if you go over the top of where you've been lightly, you'll get that pattern starting to come through, like what we did with his back. Hopefully you can see that. And then bringing some of that pink up into his face and neck where we've already been. So once you've got that first layer in, and then you can start to darken up or just go over with different shades. I'm going over the top now with a cobalt green, and if you do that you can start to see how much you can brighten up those colours. And you can do it as well where you have one side darker than the other. So like here, so if I just darken that up again. And then if you go in again with a darker blue. Well, I'm using this cobalt bluish greenish. And if you just wanted to maybe highlight those lines, you could do that. And then just make one side darker. It's up to you, but you'll start to see different effects when you do that. Or you can just keep it all one colour. And then the same with your green, if you get a darker green. And then if you do the same with your green and you get a darker green, you can do the same there as well, just darken up one side. Or you can just colour them with block. It depends on what kind of effect you want to get. So I'm going over the blue now with the green in this central one. So I'm just going to darken it up. Just for effect, to let you see those white areas coming through. And I'm just going to use some blue on this one. So there's a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, and then maybe add a little bit of blue at the top here, just to experiment and see how bright you can get your colours by layering them up with different colours. Blues on greens, greens on blues. If you brought a yellowy tone in there, you would brighten up again. So if you used like your dark Naples on top of that, you would really brighten up that green even more. And so if you wanted to then go around and highlight those areas as well, so if you want to go back in with your pink and then make it a little bit darker from the outside in, then you start to create a little bit more dimension on his flipper. And if you have it really dark at the end as well, darkening up that area, again you start to see that round effect starting to come in. And then if you just graduate it and let it get lighter in the centre. And then you could maybe use a purple or just something else that was a bit darker again. But I'm just going to use a magenta again, just to darken that area and then to start to highlight. So going up that white line that you've just done, then that just emphasises that pattern a bit more. If you want that, you don't have to do that. And again, just darkening up around this area. And if you wanted to create like a shadow along here, if you found your darker, whatever colour you wanted to use, so I'm going to use mauve, and then if you just highlight that outside line with your mauve, but then just come in gradually and darken it up. You start to darken a little bit of the white as well, and if you keep it going in the same sort of area, then it starts to look like a shadow. Just going all the way along there. And then if you use your black, just to highlight it even more, just to let us know that that's the sort of end of his flipper. And if he is going to be in the sea or whatever you want to do with him, you can create a shadow coming out of there if you want. So I'm just going to darken up, just keep going in and darken up that area, and then dragging a little bit more shadow out from under his shell, and you can put some of that shadow onto his shell as well. Take a little bit of the black over there just to darken that up, and making it really dark in this area here as well, blackening that up a little bit. And so it's the same idea with all of these other little, for the back leg you can't really see any detail because of the shadow, so I would maybe just use a colour on there, so maybe choose a blue or something over the top of that shadow, and then just continue to darken up that shadowed area with different layers. So now that he's got a bit of blue in there, you can see that, so get my black and just start to create more of a shadow over the top of that blue. And then I would put patterns on this one as well, in the same way we've done that. And so if you wanted to emphasise it even more around there, you could use your fine liner, and just to bring some of that black from his face and some of the black from there, you could maybe bring some dots in going around, maybe not all the way around each thing, some of it going all the way around, some of it not. Or you could have your dots going inside, so maybe creating a black dot every now and again inside, just making it a bit bigger. You could do that, maybe have a couple in that one. And so I would use the fine liner as well if you have one, just to darken up his mouth. That would make it darker. And also if you wanted to bring it in on under his eye, on his eyelid. And if you do it thicker at the corner and then just let it gradually get lighter and lighter, it looks more effective. And then of course, if you wanted to do what you did with the whale and on the outside, just go around and create a little bit of colour on the outside, find whatever shade you want to do, and then just go all the way around with that colour. I'm using a cobalt turquoise, and then you could just make a darker blue in between that and do all your little squiggles like what I like to do. And then you don't have to do all of a background. It's quite nice sometimes if you're having him as a centerpiece just to have little splashes of colour every now and again. So maybe have a little bit here, a little bit maybe here, or you can just continue and do it all the way around his body and have squiggles and things. So whatever you enjoy doing. And so his tummy needs brightening up as well, so I'm going to bring in the cadmium yellow and start to brighten up little areas in there as well, just underneath where his shadow is. And then maybe just highlight that line a little bit at the end of his tummy. And then of course, you know, the rest of his shell just needs a lot more layers to brighten it up. So if you are doing your gel pen, I would do that at the end. I just brought that in just to show you. And because I get excited and jump ahead of myself. But if you've got lots of yellow going on in his shell, and also if you want to go over where you've been in the pink with the yellow, that'll brighten that up as well, make it more orangey. And then again brightening up this pink. So every now and again just checking back in to see where your darkest areas should be, and if they're not feeling very dark anymore, just darken them back up again. So obviously I'm doing it really rough, so it's not going to have as nice an effect, but I'm hoping it's still giving you what you need to go ahead and create your own. I can't wait to see what you all do. And like I would, because there's bright pink in there, I would bring that in and start to brighten up his face with it as well. Just bringing all those colours together and making it feel more cohesive. And if you have it darkest at the outside and gradually coming in, that's when you get that illusion of it being round. Darken up maybe bits of his fin as well. So hopefully you've got something there to help you get on. So have a play trying to make him look cuter, changing the shape of his face. So if you use your PDF in the pay link as your guideline to start off with, just getting into the habit of drawing around that, and then try drawing outside the lines, so coming further in or going further out or making it smaller, and then try using your actual little shells, if you cut them out, to draw around, and then drawing like what we did, drawing our turtle from just that shell. And then after that, if you feel like you want to go ahead and do it all by yourself, then just have a play, maybe start with his eye and then build it up all the way around, and see how you go on, and then try doing it different sizes. So if you try now just doing it really small, little small eye. If I move this up a bit, and then if you look at that and you think, oh, he looks a bit too grumpy for me there. Where's my rubber? Then rub that out and try giving him a really big eye, but small, if that makes sense. A small big eye, so making it really round. And then using that for your head. And then little face, little mouth. If you want him to be happier the next time, then just up his smile, then coming down and creating that little bit, or making it more elongated. And then maybe you want to make his shell rounder next time. Just roughly. So you can see how different he looks. He's got a longer face this time. His shell's not as big. But if you just sketch and play and see what it is that you like or don't like, and the images that you don't like are as much a success as the ones you don't like, because it helps you to see what's working and what's not working. And then if you're not happy with those lines, rub them out or go extend them from there, and then rub those lines out. Once you've got a little bit of an outline, you can let it grow from that outline just by rubbing out. And then you might think, oh, I want his head a bit bigger, or maybe you're happy with it at that. So there, you've made him a bit smaller from the last time. So the next time, try and make him even smaller. And if you then want him to fit in to your water scene, you might have it that you're going to have your little turtle sitting on your mermaid's knee, or you might have the turtle as your centerpiece and the whale's not even in there. Or you could just have a little tiny turtle up in among your bubbles. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. Hopefully you can share it in the group, and let me know how you get on. If you have any questions, then please email me. Feel free to email me at hello@adashofd.com, and if you want to use your hashtags on your social media so that we can get a whole load in together, it's going to be hashtag wonderful water world workshop. I forgot to tell you the workshop bit in the first video. On Instagram, on Facebook, then that'll hopefully get us lots of everybody's art in together. So it's just in the early stages, so hopefully that'll start to catch on. But in the meantime, I'll let you go. If you've got your whales done, then please put them into the group as well. Let everybody see how much you're growing and progressing. And I shall look forward to our next one, which is going to be the little seal and the dolphin. I don't have the dolphin with me at the minute. He's in a little folder somewhere, but we're going to do the seal and the dolphin, and then we'll move on to doing our mermaids before. So we're going to be doing some octopuses and shellfish and jellyfish and quite a lot of things actually. So, and seahorses. So we'll look forward to that, and hopefully you've had fun, everybody. Take care. See you on the next workshop. Bye.